Hello. How are you? Welcome to Vinyl Junkies, episode 23. The big vinyl score. How it is that I scored way too many records in such a short period of time, I almost can't believe it myself. As always, there's a technical difficulty, so I'm looking right now to see if I'm actually going on live. And I am not, because do you have any idea how much I hate technology and computers? That's the first thing that I say for this episode. Buenos dias, buongiorno, bonjour, and hello. I'll learn in a few other languages eventually. Guten Tag, does that work? Welcome to Vinyl Junkies, episode 23. The Big Haul. Vinyl Inheritance. Something very interesting. Sorry, I actually had to suck back snot there. It's not this time. It wasn't the affected sniff. You know, it's kind of like you say something and you try to sound important. That wasn't it. I actually had to suck back snot. So much has happened this week. It's overwhelming and it's overwhelmingly good. I'm blessed. I'm glad to see you guys here. I love spending time with you, and welcome. Get your beverages ready and let's have a very good chew. Cold coffee is better than no coffee at all, isn't it? So, plenty on this week. We'll start off with some VJ news, and I guess I'll just read the countdown first type of thing. We start off with some VJ news. At the top of the hour would be that we did 2 shows last week, including our very first Vinyl Junkies interview with Tav Falco talking about his Christmas album. And besides not going on live on Facebook like it was supposed to, it lasted less than 30 minutes. It was only on YouTube, and it was kind of a beautiful disaster is what it was. I'm going to tell you all about it. It's worth watching. And it ends in a dance sequence. So, you know, that's never bad, right? Fat bearded man dancing. You know that's quality internet entertainment. So you go to YouTube and you look for the Vinyl Junkies channel, and you're gonna see this Tav Falco thing. I'll tell you the story. There's a fun story there. I'll tell you about the week that was. We did another episode yesterday actually. What's in Your Cart, episode 4 with Matt Hessler, and the groove is so cool with that guy, man. He's just a very cool, down-to-earth person who's amiable, you know, and I think makes for good radio. So the marketing guy at Vinyl Me Please, we do this monthly thing every time their member store is about to open. So their member store is opening on Monday, right? So what we do is we have this game called What's in Your Cart, very much like Amoeba's What's in Your Bag, What's in My Bag, right? So the premise is you got $100. You can go there, shop for $100. You can't go over that amount. Which records do you choose? Which records make the cut? Which records just miss the cut? The conversation is based upon that, and I gotta say that it's just such a camaraderie, such a friendship, such a bond has happened by doing this that both Hessler looks forward to it and I look forward to it. And it's the fact that there are going to be more people on the show just makes it amazing, man. Amazing. You know, I bust balls a lot. I think that's part of, whatever, the persona. But ultimately, I love these people. Why would I have them on the show if I didn't love them? And you know what? If you actually paid attention to the What's in Your Cart with Ben, he busted my chops before I busted his. So it's open season. We're going to be doing a rockabilly or garage rock segment in January with him and Andrew Rossiter of Org Music. So hilarity shall ensue, and I expect to get hit hard for my online indiscretions. What else? This is where I look at notes. Should I do the pre-rolls and get those out of the way? You guys know that Vinyl Me Please is our anchor sponsor here. They make it happen. Thank you. Visit app.vinylmeplease.com. You're going to see the link there. pick a prize, man. Any prize. Just pick a prize, app.vinylmeplease.com, and tell us what that prize is. Copy paste it in the comments. Just tell us what that, participate. And we will pick a winner. This week, we're going to announce the winner from last week. And I'm going to have to do it live because, of course, I forgot to do it. But no biggie. I'll do it. And you know that once I start kind of like playing around with things on the computer, the show's over. So just hang up unless you actually, shared the video and commented, and in which case you may actually win the record, and we will look at that, okay? So Vinyl Me Please, their web shop opens on Monday. Yesterday's episode of What's in My Cart, What's in Your Cart, with Hessler was all about that. There were some really good picks. So Phala got discussed, Thelonious Monk got discussed, Sesame Street and the Electric Company and Miles Davis and Schoolhouse Rock, we discussed that as well. Pearl Jam and a whole bunch of other imbecilities. So I think that's the fun part about the format. When you got music lovers, you put them together and it's just a conversation goes here and it goes there, and that's what happened. It ruled. It ruled. We also have Org Music, who were behind a Tav Falco Christmas and that Garage Days compilation that I looked at last week on episode 22. They shine new light on seminal recordings from vinyl catalogs like CTI. They got a big CTI catalog. Sun Records, they just put out a Charlie Feathers compilation, which I talked to Tav Falco about on that interview with him. Entertaining, but he's the one who does the liner notes in the Charlie Feathers record, and they're great. They read like a first-person account. Worth looking at. Org Music also carries the Black Lion catalog, and I got a bunch of those, which I haven't gotten around to, but at one point, I'm just going to do kind of like a big Black Lion bulk review, because that stuff's top-notch, and as far as I'm concerned, really stuff you pick up immediately. Very well done. And then many others. They got Atlantic, they got Columbia, they got a whole bunch of stuff. And they got Mike Watt, Contemplating the Engine Room, which I discovered only a couple of weeks ago. I'm very happy to have discovered it. It's time to start getting into the Minutemen and Firehose and going down that rabbit hole. I'm looking forward to that rabbit hole. It is one that will be fun. Then we got Vinyl Style, who basically take care of all of my vinyl needs here at VJ headquarters, which is to say that inner sleeves, outer sleeves, brushes, cleaners. Here's like a package of the brushes. I mean, this is not for podcast land, but it's for internet land. And it gives you a brush for your cartridge and needle and stylus and a whole bunch of things. So modern solutions is what I'm trying to say, you understand? For these vinyl problems of ours, the dust and the static and all the fucking drugs that come off the records. We have to do something to combat these forces. Fret not, vinyl aficionados. Vinyl Style, they're there for you. They are there for you. So this logo here that you can't see in podcast land, you see them shits? I can attest with no bullshit certainty that they make good stuff. And I figure I'm allowed to talk about it a little while. Why? Because I ad-lib all this, and that's got to count for something. And then we have our other sponsor, and I don't have any snappy call phrases for Run Out Groove at all, other to say that they're groovy and they're cool. And they put out fantastic records. We're going to be working very closely with them. And it's going to lead to some pretty great content for the show. You guys are going to get to vote on stuff. I'm going to fill you in later. I'm not going to give it to you all now, but there's a little tease there. If you love Run Out Groove, and they've put out stuff like the MC5 and Echo and the Bunnymen and Secret Machines and Iggy Pop, the Funhouse Sessions. So, I mean, we're not talking about garbage catalog here. We're talking about amazing catalog, right? And they're about to print Ministry's Greatest Fits, which is the Greatest Hits compilation. That's the next one. But you know what? Wait till you meet Billy Fields, this big fucking muckety muck over there at Warner Brothers. You got to see this guy's mustache. Once you meet this guy, you know what? You would think a big shot like that guy, he'd have everything under control. I don't got any fucking copy to talk about. I don't got any fucking banners. I got nothing. You're leaving me over here and it's like the fucking paddle is broken. Water, I'm taking water, I'm sinking. Billy, you're letting me down, Billy. You and me, we have a reckoning in 2008. When you come on the show, Billy, oh boy, heads are gonna roll. His mustache is fucking redonkulous. You gotta see it. He's awesome. 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 And I promise it'll be good radio. It can't not be. These guys are all interesting people. That's what makes it work. You think I'm just gonna put some boring guy on? No! You get interesting people. A little crazy, but we all got a story. You understand? And that's what you listen to. So, cheers. Cold coffee is starting to suck. We've taken care of responsibilities. I'm good with that. Can I tell you something? And this one is totally from the heart. One of the things that I think you should have, just a little piece. I'm going to do more later, but Piero Umiliani. Okay? When Matt and me did that, What's in Your Cart, and we were planning it, he almost apologized for a sparse store. And I'm like, are you fucking crazy? Like that Umiliani, they put out an Umiliani double LP. It's a compendium of his entire career, right? 2 LP, it's called Grazie. And the picture kind of looks old-timey. And yeah, I have no idea the music that's in that thing. I don't even know, but after we talked about it and I had told Matt about how much I love Umiliani and his just crazy synth sounds and, you know, how important he was to Italian cinema and exploitation movies, I told him, it's like, I don't care what's on the record. But ultimately, after we got off the show, I did look at the song titles. I don't click on anything. And lo and behold, I take a look and I pretty much know every song on that record. Now, the point I'm trying to make is not because I'm some fucking big shot. Think about it. I'm in my basement in my pajamas, crusty underwear. I got records. This is what I do all day. There's nothing glamorous about this. It's fun, but there's nothing glamorous. So I'm not trying to self-aggrandize. You understand? The deal is this. I just fucking talked myself right out of my point. What was I saying? Will anybody help me? Sucking in snot, sorry. What the fuck was I saying? Fuck it. I bore myself. Why should I even try to remember? Unless you guys leave a comment. Leave a comment or something. Say something. Say something to me. Okay, we'll go into last week. We'll do that. And then we'll do reviews, okay? I think we kind of already went into last week, but I'll go a little bit more into it. The week started off with an interview, our very first interview. It's not like we haven't tried, and we're still trying. There's still some very, very exciting stuff in the pipeline. I've just learned now that you just hold on a little longer before announcing. I'm comfortable announcing and falling on my face. Make no mistake. I'm perfectly comfortable. As a matter of fact, I think one of the big elements of a show like this is just to kind of show you guys that I'm an ordinary guy, okay? And I fail, and I get up and I keep going, and I'll never fucking stop. And that's why this is going to succeed, period. So, if a bipolar, mentally ill dude like me, who sits in pajamas, can do something, if just follow whatever the fuck they love, anybody can. I'm a dumbass. You're probably just as smart as me, just as much of a dumbass as me. So, I'm comfortable talking about the failures, but ultimately, because I think that's more a more honest slice of life, number one, and I think that, you know, the drama unfolds not when you just kind of like take the highlight and you show the swing and, you know, the grand slam that wins the World Series. The drama unfolds when there's, you know, you swing and you miss some and you foul some off. That entire story, the push and pull, the negative stuff. So, good stuff is coming. And our first interview wound up being Tav Falco, who I was not very familiar with. He put out a Christmas album called Tav Falco, a Tav Falco Christmas. Now, I'm I know that he lived down in the South, and he had a band called Tav Falco Panther Burns, on which Alex Chilton of Big Star played for a little while. There was a show. You should look for this video that they did, Panther Burns, in 1979, where he calls him Axel Chitlin, and it's pretty terrible, but God bless Tav, he just kind of stuck in there, and the woman was basically telling him on this interview that, fuck, you guys are bad, and he just soldiered through, and it was the best outsider stuff ever. And, you know, as she's finishing talking, he's like, okay, well, now we'd like to perform, and he's about to get into another song, and the lady goes, hey, buddy, slow down here. Didn't even let them perform another song. But again, you know, just that, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. That's now become one of my favorite outsider videos, and I can understand why it's got 50K views on YouTube. I should favorite it and maybe put it in one of my playlists so you guys could watch it as well. So, this is what I knew. I knew that he wrote the liner notes to the Charlie Feathers record, and that he had an association with Sun and had recorded in Sun Records studio. So Andrew and Org Music put out the Christmas album on Black Friday. Okay, should we do an interview? Absolutely, let's do an interview. Let's talk about Christmas records. Everything's great. We're talking, get along, you know. He's right on. He calls me. We set everything up. We got to set the technology up ahead of time. So we set up the technology, and everything's beautiful. So, all right, Thursday, noon. Cool. Go. 10:30. Hey, look, I don't think that we can do it at this time. Can we reschedule? Now, at this point, I set up my shots. I did the research. Everything. The show's going on in 90 minutes. No, we can't put on the show another time. Sorry, a nurse might be coming to see me. And I don't know where the guy lives. Does he live in fucking Paris? Does he live in Vienna? Does he live in Croatia? I don't know. Okay, but there's this whole cloak and dagger thing, which just adds to the weird kind of like mystique that is Tav Falco, you know? So, he's telling me that we probably can't do it. Can we start earlier? It's like, no, dude, we can't start earlier. The show starts at this time. That's the point. And, you know, the fact that you schedule a broadcast makes it so that you guys know, all right, it's on at that time. And, you know, just broadcasting, man, simple. I'm a professional broadcaster, and I care about you, dear viewers. You understand? I'm thinking about you. I can't let people fuck that mojo up. You guys are important. You guys are the most important. So anyway, can we do this? Can we hemming, hawing? Look, you know, I got to do this nurse and everything. We might have to cut the interview short. If the nurse comes, I got to just get off. So basically, I'm going into this interview now with 15 minutes to spare, and it's like, I'm not even answering the fucking conversation. It's not a conversation anymore. It's a monologue. It's like, look, you know what? I fucking hate dealing with artists. I hate it. I hate dealing with artists. There's always a fucking issue, Jesus Christ. So, I'm there. I just stopped talking altogether. Everything winds up right, but I'm going into this interview not even knowing if it's going to last 2 fucking seconds, not being able to get into the entire preamble, which allows me to... Nothing. So I'm already stressed going into this entire thing. Anyway, it winds up going off. Not very good prep time. And I talk about Tav, and, you know, he's on the other line. Everything's fine. Oh, he had also asked if he can do just voice. And it's like, no, dude, it's... Anyway. So we proceed with the interview, and I introduce him as... you know, his stuff is certainly unique. He's got a unique voice, and I introduce him as a rockabilly oddity. Now, during the time that I'd spoken to Tav, and we'd spoken for a good while, I had made, you know, reference to outsider art and, you know, this whole weirdo thing, and me being a weirdo, as a matter of fact. So it's like, look, man, if I was going to offend the guy, I was going to offend him way before, because it's not like I... So, get on. Anyway, I introduced Tav as Rockabilly Oddity, and he just comes right up off on the show. He goes, first off, I would like to say that I resent being called a rockabilly oddity. I get thrown a fucking, I get thrown a curveball immediately. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we are. We've been talking like nothing. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, the last day, it's a big fucking disaster all the way at the end. And now you're telling me that you're even offended at the way that it is. It's like, oh. So I'm caught off guard. No, dude, come on, man. The reason I can call you an oddity is because I'm an oddity. We had spoken for a while. He knows I'm a fucking oddity. Look at me. I'm a mess. So now he's taking offense at being called an oddity. So we're doing this thing, and I'm trying to explain, and I'm all uncomfortable and bashful, and trying to explain, you know, away the fact that, look, dude, I'm not trying to insult you. That's not what I meant. I meant that you are a unique voice, and that's not a bad thing. And the reason it is I would call you an oddity is because I always saw myself as one, you know, so. And at the end of this entire thing, which I did entirely to kind of like explain away the thing, he just says right into the camera, like rather annoyingly, I mean, watch it, judge, it's just, it's like, all right, now that we have explained the definition of what word was it? Yeah, now that we've gone through the definition of oddity, can we get to speaking about music? So at this point, I'm thinking this show's going to be a fucking disaster. The show goes on. I don't remember how it is that we got into the entire conversation, but it wasn't really much of a conversation at all. It was a monologue because as I had started, once Tav got started, it's I couldn't get a fucking word edgewise. It was just he was going on and it's like I noticed that he was on his fucking agenda. And he hijacked the entire show and made it a fucking episode of QVC. So it's like, oh, and this book that I wrote called whatever the fuck it was called, available at this place. And the movie that, and it's like he's just going, and he's plugging like crazy. And it's like, what the fuck do I do here? What do I do here? Like, I don't know what to do. This is my show. He's taking over the fucking thing. I mean, you're my guest. Let's talk. It's a conversation. No. It's just QVC, man. QVC Falco got on. QVC Tav got on. And he's like fucking starts hawking his book and starts hawking. What? So I'm just like thinking to myself, all right, so what do? Do I pull that accidental kind of like hang up and say, oops, technical difficulties? Or do I just kind of like hang up and say, oh, fuck this. I don't feel like dealing with it. I just resigned myself to the entire thing and I let him talk. And I figure, you know what? Might as well have fun while I'm here anyway. I'm sitting down. So I just figure I'd fucking pepper in his conversation every once in a while. Just to feel like I'm part, you know, just to feel like I'm having a conversation. But it's not a conversation. It's more kind of like call and response. You know, he's the preacher preaching the gospel of Tav. And I just kind of like every once in a while praise Jesus, hallelujah. That's me. So that was my role, and I was resigned. I was resigned to being a guest on my own show. So we play the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and we have a pretty cool discussion about music. It was wonderful. By the way, this was not. It was weird. It was uncomfortable, but it wasn't unpleasant. He's a good guy, man. He's a good guy. It was fun. Okay, and you'll love the way the story ends. So, you know, we go on and he tells me about how his version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was basically Gene Autry is the version he was thinking of the most. And, you know, talked about Blue Christmas, talked about some of the other records. And, yeah, I just kind of faded there for a little while. But it's because I don't remember where I'm going to go next with the story. So if you don't mind too much, I'm going to slow down. I asked him about Wilf. I didn't know about Wilf. But even as I started talking about Wilf, I was all excited. I was hoping he knew who he was. The Canadian yodeling cowboy, and we could talk about, you know, we can kind of like bond over Down by the Railroad Tracks, and maybe I can play him some if he didn't know. But the thing is that by this time it was the Tav show. So even as I started talking about that, like I got excited, and then you'll notice I just deflate immediately. Because like, this is not going to go anywhere, so forget it. It's like, you know. So I was kind of like checked out of my own show. Truthfully. we fast forward, and all right, you know, one tune that I like very much on it is Soulful Christmas. He wrote a song called Soulful Christmas. It's the last song on the album. And it's like, we're going to play it. Cool. Now, it's a great song. It fucking rocks. It's just, it's funk, man. It's just, it throws down, right? And Watt's on the bass on that. So, you know, go on. Soulful Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And he's just, and there's a groove, right? So it's kind of like I start moving around on my chair, and he's moving around on his chair. Turn it up, he says. Exactly as I was turning it up. Now, all of a sudden, nothing matters because it's the fucking music that takes over. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Soulful Christmas. And it's just fucking going off, and he's dancing and I'm dancing, and we're fucking calling and responding over this entire song, and I get up and I start dancing my ass off to the thing. Why? Because it was good and we were having a good time. That was the point of the fucking conversation all along. And that's what wound up happening. We wound up having a good time. It was great. But it was an oddball interview, and that's the backstory behind it. I'm going to put it up on the webpage eventually, but right now it's only on YouTube. Look for A Christmas with Tav Falco. It's there. You know what? I got to tell you, I was almost, I didn't even know if I liked that show. And then kind of like the next day I thought about it and realized that, and this is not saying much at all, it may be the best fucking thing I've done up to date on Vinyl Junkies. The fact that it was an unmitigated disaster, I'm not sure if it shows, but it was kind of an unmitigated disaster that was saved by the powers of rock and roll. You understand? It's a beautiful story. Rock and roll never forgets. And rock and roll is a vicious game. And rock and roll ain't noise pollution. And rock and roll is just a rock and roll, yeah. So that's my Tav Falco story. We're going to move on. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to doing this one. But we are now going to move on to doing some reviews. That's the next segment. Let me take off that tag. And let me put on... Oh, of course that happened. Of course that happened! What a fucking pain in the ass. What a pain in the ass. I hate technology. I took a good amount of time to set up shots so that you'd have nice pictures to look at and shit. And all of that is gone. Because fucking technology sucks. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about Miles Davis, the Vinyl Me Please December album of the month, Sorcerer. Miles Davis, Sorcerer. Now, you see, what it is that I had done is I had prepared a nice little fucking carousel of pictures and, you know, give you a little bit of that interactive action. You don't see it in a podcast land, but I figure, and it's supposed to be radio, but I figure you lazy fucks every once in a while, you're going to look at that thing. The generation of today is stuck to the fucking screen, you understand? I get it. So I figure, let me give you some kind of little rotating thingy at the corner so that you can look at these wonderful pictures of this Miles Davis Sorcerer while I talk about it, and the technology fucked me. No Vaseline. Sucks. So what we're going to do is, you see that Umiliani record? We're going to pretend that every review I did, okay, I'm going to be doing Miles Davis, I'm going to be doing Quicksand, and I'm going to be doing Converge, the new Converge. And we're going to have to pretend that that Umiliani record is each of those things. So I need you guys to play imagination with me. Please. Please. Please and thank you. Oh, yeah, and we're going to do Timothy McNeely. So you got to imagine just a little bit harder too, okay? I've had Sorcerer since forever. I'm a Miles fanatic. I won't buy everything by Miles. Well, who the fuck are we kidding? I'll buy everything by Miles. Almost everything. The only stuff that's not really for me is the 80s stuff. I even liked his last record, Doobop, which he recorded, and he wound up dying before it was even finished. But for the most part, I'll buy everything. And my big wheelhouse in music in general, but definitely with Miles also, is 65 to 75. And that's really wheelhouse for Miles for me. And this album, Sorcerer, came out in 67. It was exactly during that time. Okay. But it's what they used to call his second great quintet. His first quintet was actually not the same quintet as on Kind of Blue. Can you believe I just forgot the name of Kind of Blue? It's not the same thing. But the first great quintet was John Coltrane. Close. Philly Joe Jones on the drums. Miles Davis, obviously. Paul Chambers on bass. And you would think because, you know, Bill Evans played piano on Kind of Blue, no, Red Garland was the pianist during this first great quintet. And, you know, Milestones was a big record. Whole bunch of great stuff. The second great quintet, what happened was they were trying to basically get him into a contract. Columbia was trying to get him into a contract, so they were asking him to put together a new group, and it's like, hey, if you put together a new group, we'll sign you to a contract. And he was kind of pissed off and stuff, so he hired a bunch of young bloods and changed jazz. He introduced the world to Tony Williams, who, for my money, I mean, whatever, man. I don't like using superlatives. It's just best jazz drummer, and then you start thinking about fucking all the other great jazz drummers with Roach and so forth. Of course, the names aren't coming to me, but all this is to say that Tony Williams was a game changer, and he was the driving force behind the second great quintet, which is the Sorcerer Quintet, right? And we have, I wrote it down, so now I kind of don't have to think about it anymore. Wayne Shorter on the saxophone. Okay, he wound up getting on as soon as John Coltrane left the band and did his own thing. Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, okay, who was a young pianist again, and during this time also released his first solo record, Maiden Voyage. Ron Carter on the bass. In other words, a bunch of killers today, like a bunch of people that are absolute legends and killers who would go on to define jazz for themselves. Now, the Vinyl Me Please article and other stuff that I'd seen seemed to paint this record a little bit as an anomaly. Okay, it's the third of 5 records that Miles did with the second great quintet. And there were some anomalies, there's no doubt about it. I mean, one thing that kind of stands out right away is the final track. I'll talk about it later because it's a vocal track and there's a whole other kind of like avenue I'll go into going there. I can talk Miles forever, guys. So I hope you like Miles Davis. If you don't like jazz, this is probably not going to be the segment for you. Okay, so where am I going now? Sorcerer 67. Okay, so I'm going to do the chronology. The first record they put out was ESP. By the way, Miles always had this habit of putting his girlfriends and wives on the cover. And it's during this period, the second great quintet, that you really start seeing the records that he puts his girlfriends on. Okay, so ESP, for example, there's a picture of him kind of like in a garden staring up at who was his wife at the time, Frances Davis. Miles Smiles came out in 66. That's a picture of him. Sorcerer, which is this one, is none other than Cicely Tyson, the actress. They had a very contentious relationship. Then again, Miles had a contentious relationship with everybody. He was a prick. He was a wife beater, but a genius. 67, same year, Nefertiti came out. Just to continue the theme of, women on his covers. 68, Feed the Kilimanjaro, featured his girlfriend at the time, Betty Mabry, who would eventually become Betty Davis, right? So Betty Davis, that funk queen. Yeah, Betty Mabry, she appears on a Miles Davis record also. And then Miles in the Sky is where they really start. It's not the quintet anymore, but they really start kind of like stretching out and hitting the fusion territory and going into that, that eventually becomes a big voodoo funk. And it gets me back to this idea that people see it a bit as a transition record, like he's in between things. Look, Miles hated being boxed in. Miles hated standing still any time. Miles's direction is exactly what he wanted it to be. When he started this entire thing, he went with the idea of, this isn't about me, this is a collaboration, and you guys are going to bring this thing together, and we're going to use your compositions, and we're going to play, and you guys are going to play off of each other instead of just you looking towards me, and I'm the band leader. Okay, so that's where it is that you see this fucking power behind this music, man. It's like driven by Tony Williams. And I lose my train of thought. I get excited and then I lose my train of thought. So yeah, the sound evolved. But to say that it was between two things, to me seems like not understanding the spirit of Miles Davis at all, because Miles Davis was an absolute chameleon and he changed all the time, every fucking time. So there's no such thing as a transition to somebody who was always changing. And I never saw it that way. As somebody who's owned the record forever, in every format imaginable, I never once saw the record that way. Again, I'm not trying to chest beat or anything. I've read the biography fucking 5 times. Crazy Miles person. Crazy Miles person. Crazy Coltrane person. I like music. It never really occurred to me. You're right. There's one song that he doesn't play at all on. I think is the second song on the record. Doesn't play at all on the song. The last song on the record features vocals, and they weren't recorded by the quintet. They came by only later. Okay, it's a song that was recorded in '62, and it featured Bob Doro. This is where I'm going with the other story. We're going to get into Kitty Rock now. We're going to start talking about Miles Davis and Kitty Rock. So the guy who sings the vocals on the last song of Sorcerer, his name is Bob Doro. Can I have a drink? I'll tell you about Bob Doro. Do you mind if I have a drink? I'll have a drink. You can't say I didn't ask for permission. It's just I'm parched in this coffee. Like I take milk in my coffee, so it's starting to taste like ass. Salud, amigos. So, it's iced tea. Don't be like that. So, Bob Doro is who sang that last song. It's a 2-minute ditty. Tiny little thing. Pretty traditional kind of jazz song on which Miles plays trumpet and the quintet isn't on it. And it's great. And those of you of a certain vintage, namely my age, you know, in your 40s for sure and later, will have grown up watching Saturday morning cartoons. That doesn't exist anymore now. But Saturday morning cartoons were... we had trouble getting up in the morning to go to school. But oh boy, man, we didn't have trouble with the Saturday morning cartoons. So guys who grew up in the 70s and in the 80s grew up watching stuff like Schoolhouse Rock and grew up watching stuff like Sesame Street. Well, that's when we were younger type of thing. But Schoolhouse Rock is the one that I'm thinking of for the most part. And Bob Doro is the guy who wrote all those songs on Schoolhouse Rock. And he's a legit jazz guy. Now, when we were listening to the songs as kids, hey, fuck, we didn't know, right? It's like, conjunction, junction, what's that function, right? And the Bill song and Interplanet Janet, she's a galaxy girl. And there's never been a planet Janet hasn't seen. No, there's never been a planet Janet hasn't seen. And there's a woman on that who sings some of those songs as well, whose name is Blossom Dearie. And she's a jazz singer, and a lovely jazz singer, of whom I have not a single fucking album, nothing, not a song. And I've been looking for Blossom Dearie material since forever. Well, these are the people who sang Schoolhouse Rock. And this is the voice of the gentleman Bob Doro, who sings on the last song of this record, Sorcerer. So just to kind of add a little bit to it. And don't ever discount that early Kid Rock, man. Not the fucking idiot, not him. Kitty Rock. Let's say it like that, okay? Electric Company was funky. Have you ever seen Stevie Wonder on Sesame Street? I'm pretty sure Questlove's been in. A ton of musicians have been on it. That shit is funky. Funky. You understand? Muppet Show? Come on now. Muppet Show. Have you seen even the new Muppet Show is good. It's not as good as the old one, but even the new Muppet Show is good. Do you ever see the episode, the drum off between the original drum off? Just to tell you, was between Buddy Rich in the 70s. They did one episode where Animal of the Muppet Show doing a fucking drum off against Buddy Rich, and of course that's because Buddy Rich was famous for doing these drum battle albums. Drum battle albums, I collect every drum battle album I can see, I find. So you'll find records that say Gene Krupa versus Buddy Rich versus Max Roach, and it just goes on. And basically, it's fucking amazing. Drumming is what it is, right? So I pick them up on site. The very first Muppet Show drum battle was between Buddy Rich, who was known for these drum battles, and Animal of the Muppet Show. Fast forward a bunch of years, and the new Muppet Show, which I also watched and I also found really cool. Even, there was one guy, they have kind of like this big dreadlocked kind of Muppet who's really cool. But the second drum battle wound up consisting of Animal versus Dave Grohl of Nirvana, Foo Fighters. And that one was really good too. And there have been other musical guests who are just not coming to mind right now. But what I'm saying is, please, I implore you, go watch Sesame Street. And somebody on vinyl, please put out some Sesame Street music, man. There's tons of it out there. I want it. Come on, you wouldn't want that Point Your Sister song, the pinball song? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Right? So that, dear friends, is why that album that you bought, Vinyl Me Please, Sorcerer, it did a good thing. It's a good record. They're all good records, though. So the reason I pointed out all the other thing as I was giving the discography is, if you like that record and you like that second great quintet, where should you be going next? Just so you know, okay, we'll start right at the beginning, right? ESP, ESP is where it is that they got started, and you'll see a picture of Miles kind of like looking up at his girlfriend. There would be his wife. There would be, that. This is imagination time. That Emiliani picture, here's where it is that you try to pretend that you see a Miles Davis cover, okay? 66 was the second one, Miles Smiles. Great album. Sorcerer is where this one comes in. Cicely Tyson's on the cover of that. Nefertiti after that. Another good one. These are all the second great quintet, right? Feed the Kilimanjaro, I believe, is the last one. And then it starts kind of veering into the electronic territory and just completely fucking flies off the rails by the time the Cokehead 70s come. But it starts with Miles in the Sky, goes into In a Silent Way, and, then Bitches Brew happens, and then Jack Johnson happens, and then Miles reinvents music again. Once again, what it is that I'm trying to say is that there's no such thing as a in-between record, as far as I'm concerned, with Miles Davis. Miles Davis, it's a career, man, and it's just every part. At the end, I felt he lost his mojo, there's no doubt, but whatever, man. He's Miles Davis. And that's the review. Now, we're going to talk about Timothy McNeely, Funky Movement. This is a compilation put out by Now Again. Now Again is, I talk about it all the time because I like it that much. They're one of the premier reissue labels and one of the premier digging labels, in the sense that it's a highly curated catalog, and they dig pretty deep to find stuff that you never will hear anywhere. And of course they did it again. There was a Texas funk scene. There were 3 bands. I can't remember the third one, but I talked a little bit about the Kashmir Stage Band with Hessler yesterday on yesterday's What's in Your Cart. But, and those guys were a high school funk band. And it was the fucking bomb. They went up, anyway, I'm not going to go into yesterday's show. Watch yesterday's show if you want to. But there were like this Texas band. Really interesting story there. Okay. Funk band, a fucking school band. They became a funk band and toured. And one of those pieces, there's 3 pieces to that Texas puzzle around that time where it concerns soul and R&B and funk. And the second piece is never released before as a compilation, is this Timothy McNeely record, which you are seeing right now on the screen in the corner, aka Grazie Piero Umiliani. Yeah, that's the Timothy McNeely Funky Movement. Thanks, technology. You listen to it, and it's pretty simple. Look, if you're a deep digger, this is stuff for deep diggers, okay? You're going to hear all of the elements of that early 70s soul. So that kind of like almost call and response, you know, that kind of talking preamble that you'll hear in a lot of the early soul, like the Isaac Hayes records and Barry White and so forth. You're going to hear a lot of that here. Okay, Baby Huey does a bit of a talking bit. So that tradition is kind of continued forward. There's a big funk area there too, you know, but it's not really one of those huge booty shakers as much as it's just a big R&B based record that's really funky, but it's kind of like it's got that soul side. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Stax. It does remind me a little bit of early Sly and the Family Stone. As a matter of fact, the title track on the album, Funky Movement, has a riff that's pretty similar. Was it a riff? I don't remember, but there was one segment that was as close as you can get to a segment on Sly and the Family Stone's the song You Can Make It If You Try. So if you like that song, just to give you an idea, you can make it if you try. That's what you do when your voice kind of gives out on you. You just have to exaggerate the entire thing to justify why you acted like an idiot. So that Now Again record is a limited edition. I don't know if it's available to the general public. The way they usually do with these limited editions, and they've done a ton of them, but the way they do with the Vinyl Me Please do with these limited editions is they make it an exclusive thing for members only, and then eventually they open it up to everybody else. So I'm not sure if this one's available now. I think it is. If you're a funk person and you're somebody who likes going deeper into the crates, it's a compilation that's never been put together. It was originally only 45. Zagon dug them up and they made the record, and it's great. What's not so great is, you know, Timothy McNeely died just a few weeks ago. So anyway, Now Again hits it out of the park again, and not coincidentally, I wasn't sure on yesterday's episode with Hessler, but I took a look at the record, and lo and behold, that Kashmir Stage Band is a Now Again release. I know that I haven't told you about the big record collection, and you would think that's what I came here for, right? I guess that might be the last story. Converge. Holy fuck, I don't want to make it the last story. That's a long story. Can I tell you that story another time? What a prick I am. Converge, the Dusk and Us. I got on the train. I got on the Converge train, what was it, around the Jane Doe time, I guess. You know, they released a couple of singles, splits, and that kind of thing before. But Jane Doe, I think, was the first proper release. I could be wrong, but there was just a rawness to the music, and that I liked, and I always enjoy that kind of thing. The shows were frenetic. I did go watch that Jane Doe and You Fail Me tours. Those are basically the 2 albums I'm most familiar with the band, so I can't claim to know the catalog all that well. Seen them once at the Fun Electric here in Montreal, and like I said, it's frenetic, not hardcore, just I don't know what the fuck it is, screamcore, just fast, energetic, rageful music that always connected with me. Now, there was a little bit of those mall metal, screamo, fucking, I don't know, what do they call the mall? I call it mall metal, where you can hear a lot of it on Liquid Metal if you guys are serious subscribers, where they scream, but every single band screams in exactly the same way. They all yell the same. It's become a formula that seems to be popular and seems to sell a lot of records, but it leaves me completely cold. Why am I mentioning all of this? Because there is an element of that in the Converge vocals that I'm not creating. It's not for me, but it's not so prevalent that it takes over the entire record. It's there, and by my 3rd listen, it's almost like I didn't hear it at all. You know, so that whole screamo new metal, what's it called? There's a bit of that, but it seems like a more cohesive Converge than what I remember from the old days. It's controlled brutality, whereas early Converge was sonic vomit. It was rage, just fucking vomited out through the microphone. I'm not sure you can describe it any other way. And in this particular case, you see that there's kind of like, there's elements where they use that, but they kind of contain it and sequence it, put it in the right places. So rather than just fucking blowing your load, and every song is blowing your load for 2 fucking minutes, you know, you're seeing more structure, and it's being used more like a weapon rather than just more like a precision weapon rather than just something that bludgeons you over the head. You know, that's definitely the feeling I get off this Converge record. The Dusk in Us. Kinder, gentler, yeah, maybe. But there's plenty of rage there. There's plenty of rage. It's a great record. Okay. If I can pull it out, you got to see the booklet. You have to see the booklet that comes with this thing. Check it, man. The booklet weighs more than the rest of the package combined, but it's like, I'm not going to show all of it, and in podcast land you can't see it at all, but it's just insane. All this is to say that bravo, well done. It's a gorgeous package. I mean, you know, it's Epitaph and it's metal, so obviously there's going to be 1,000 variants of the same fucking record, but I can see why people are so high and why people are praising the record as much as they are. Looks like the reviews are good all around, and I can see that. It's a great record. It's like they never... No, it's actually not like they never left. They did leave because, like I said, everything sounds more focused and without losing its potency. Very cool record, Converge. Dig it, man. I'm kind of hoping that they come tour Montreal so I can go see them. That'd be fun. Now we move on to Quicksand Interiors, and that will be the last review. Is it the last review? Yeah, it is the last review. Quicksand haven't recorded a record in what, before this, 95 maybe? A lot of years. I don't remember how much, but a lot of years. Quicksand were a huge band for me. By 93, when Slip came out, the grunge thing was already, it was there, but it's already started to peer out, and music was starting to head in a completely different direction. And the stuff that was coming out was great, and Quicksand was part of that hardcore movement coming from New York. You know, there was just kind of like bringing back this hardcore, but infusing it with a sound that's completely forward. And I loved Walter, and everybody still loves Walter, right? And they released these 2 amazing records, Slip and Manic Compression. And for those of us who grew up in that time and got those records, you'll remember, maybe, I don't know, not critically, I don't remember if they sold who knows what, but they were massive records, and they were a big deal around everyone that I knew. There were some bands that were the shit around anybody who liked music, and those bands were, my television went off, right? Of course it would. There are bands that my television went off. Yeah, Caius was a big deal is what I was trying to say during that time. They were another one of those big shit bands. Come on, please turn on. There we go. Why does my life do this to me? You fucking cocksuckers! Turn on! Open sesame! Here I am screaming at televisions. Oh, the show never goes right. First a mouse dies, then my dog has convulsions, then somebody takes over the show. It's a fucking disaster. What are we watching over here? Is this fucking thing on? It's on. I'm fighting with my technology. What is it with this show? You guys should stop watching. Very unprofessional. Quicksand, man. It's not Quicksand anymore. It's not Quicksand anymore. It doesn't sound like Quicksand anymore. It's much lighter. It's much, it's a calmer, gentler sound that has those same things that made me go to Quicksand. And now it's not fair for us to buttonhole any band, right? So a band follows the direction, and I think it's been, what, 17 years have passed? Maybe even longer since the last album. A long time's passed since, in between records. Yeah, 17 years, I believe. And bands change. But that aggression isn't the same as it used to be. It's a much calmer and much more composed Quicksand, and the vocals aren't the same at all. And At times, it actually reminds me more of Swerve Driver than it does of the old Quicksand records. And Rival Schools reminds me more of the old Quicksand than this one does. Am I saying the record's bad? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I listened to Interiors, that's the name of the new record from Quicksand. I listened to it twice. And the first time, I was off kilter. It's not what it's not what I was expecting. The second time, I knew it was going to be different, and I just kind of listened to it for what it was, and there's a different feeling. So I'm pretty sure that subsequent listens will bring other aspects forth. What it is that I was catching from the second listen is that the songwriting starts taking over. So sometimes they're creeper albums, you know. You got to kind of listen to them a couple of times before you before all the elements start coming out, before they really start flowering, before they start blooming, before the caterpillar exits the pupa stage and becomes the butterfly that we all want it to be, the monarch butterfly. So it is entirely possible that Quicksand Interiors is the butterfly, the monarch butterfly, which used to exist in larval stage as slip and manic compression. I'm not saying I'm right, but what are you supposed to do? You know what, man? Writing about music is like dancing about architecture. You try to put the words together. For me, you know, I feel more comfortable taking music and tying it to food almost, or tying it to an emotion, or tying it to a color. I don't know. A lot of reviews, too, is just the same way of saying amazing. I think that music critics are completely useless. This show is awful, and you should never watch again. It is bad. No good. No good. And you know what? I got to tell you the truth. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure if this thing is going on. I just went and look. It's on. It's on. I did something. Hey, you see that picture at the bottom? Tell me it doesn't look like the new Quicksand record. Come on. Don't lie. It looks like the Quicksand record. Admit it. In Italy, that's what the Quicksand record looks like. You see, you get 2 records instead of 1. What I'm going to do now, I think, is I'm going to pick a winner. That doesn't mean I'm going to pick my nose. So you guys can basically turn off if you want. If you've taken the time to do something nice and spread the love by sharing this and clicking and picking your records and helping us get the word around, you know, subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, man. This is us. This isn't me. This isn't me. This is about the music. We're doing something that's never been done before. Right here. This is fucking Gonzo Radio. Gonzo Radio. You guys. Gonzo Radio. What's being done will be talked about. We're doing something special here. Spread the fucking word. You're some of the earliest people before everybody else knows about it. Because they will. You know why? Because I'm stubborn. And I will keep working my ass off until it happens. And guess what? You got to roll with the punches to get to what's real, and a rolling stone gathers no moss, which is to say that I'm not sure what it's supposed to say. What I'm saying is that things are rolling, man. I'm fucking around. I'm making a lot of jokes and all this, but the truth is that really things are going very well. I'm looking for a winner. Why does my life suck? You guys are just watching me do this. Oh, that's not a program. Should I put on... Hey, wait a second. You know what I'm going to do? Oh, no, Ben. Well, Ben's not watching. It's not about him. But now we made it about him. So the minute we mention his name, he might have to start watching. Ben. It's time. It's time, Ben. We need... Finding a winner music. Finding a winner music. There we go. Prettier than... Oh, that hurts. That hurts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wilf Carter.
I had a gal named
Feel free to sing.
that thought the world of me. For some cause or family, I could not agree. And if I'd happen at her home, was sure to start a fight. And for that reason, we would take a walk each Wednesday night.
Down by the railroad tracks, and down by the railroad tracks.
I'd hold her hand and she'd hold mine.
And down by the railroad tracks.
Some people spoon in parlor chairs and some in nice sedans. Annabelle and I, we had to make some different plans. We couldn't use the parlor and we had no car, you see. For that reason you would find
everybody,
Annabelle and me.
Yeah, down by the railroad tracks. Down by the railroad tracks.
We'd sit for hours and hours and hours
down by the railroad tracks. He cracks himself up.
I courted her for 7 months until one summer's day. Her father found it out and then there was the deuce to pay. He said, young man, come here to me. I want a word with you. Now where do you think I found myself?
I found my winner.
Finally I came to.
All together now. Down by the railroad tracks. Down by the railroad tracks.
I wonder who is there tonight.
Down by the railroad tracks.
It seems that all the big events that happened in my life, smoking my first cigarette, proposing to my wife, all happened in the south same way, was sure the jinx to me. Yet couples go there every night that call it heavenly.
Everybody now, down by the railroad tracks. Down by the railroad tracks.
That's where I lost my liberty.
Down by the railroad
The other
tracks.
day our little girl said, Mama, tell me, do if the good girls go to heaven, do the bad girls
Go there too.
Just good girls
Go
go
there,
to heaven,
heaven.
my dear. The mother softly sighed. Well, Mama, where do the bad girls go? And
Let's do it like you mean it.
it.
Down by the railroad tracks. Down by the railroad
Now
tracks.
run and play, but don't you stray.
Down by the railroad
I
tracks.
courted her for 7 months until one summer.
It would be disrespectful not to play the whole song. The winner comes after the song.
He said, young man, come here to me. I want a word with you. Now where do you think I found myself?
We get to sing again! Again! Down by the railroad tracks! Down by the railroad
I
tracks!
wonder who is there tonight.
Down by the railroad tracks! Congratulations, Tiernan Flaherty, you win. See you next week.